This is a story about how a forgotten little town found time again, and how a boy who stopped believing in Christmas brought the stars back to life. Snow had been falling for 3 days straight in the town of Wrenhill. Not the cheerful kind that danced over rooftops and chimneys. This was the quiet kind, thick and endless, as though the sky had forgotten how to stop. The streets were hushed, the shops shuttered, and the lights were dim. Wrenhill used to be a place where Christmas carols poured from every window, and the smell of cinnamon hung in the air. But that was before the great clock stopped. At the very center of Wrenhill stood a tall, iron clock tower, built centuries ago by a man named Elias Venn. He was a clockmaker so gifted, people said he could make time itself hum. This clock wasn't just for telling hours and minutes. It was the keeper of the town's rhythm. When its chimes rang out, snowflakes seemed to fall in perfect sync. Candles flickered to its beat. And every Christmas Eve, precisely at midnight, the very top of the tower would open and release a burst of pure starlight into the sky. But 5 years ago, the clock fell silent. And when it did, something inside the town went still too. The laughter faded, the carols stopped, and the magic seemed to seep away, leaving only the cold. In a crooked little house just behind the old bakery lived Theo, a 12-year-old boy with hair the color of autumn leaves and eyes that were always searching for something that wasn't there. His father had been the clockmaker's apprentice, right up until he disappeared in a blinding snowstorm. The very same night, the clock stopped, and because of that, Theo hated Christmas. He didn't hate it loudly, with anger, but quietly, like someone who's given up waiting for the sound of a footstep that will never come. One gray afternoon, with the snow still falling, Theo found himself wandering near the old clock tower. It leaned slightly, groaning under the heavy weight of the snow. Everyone in town said it was cursed, a monument to what they had lost. But as Theo looked up, he noticed something odd, a faint, flickering light behind the frosted glass of the huge clock face. Drawn by a curiosity he hadn't felt in years, he walked to the tower's base and pressed his hand against the cold iron door. To his surprise, it clicked open. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of dust and forgotten time. Giant gears slept under heavy white blankets of cobwebs. Candles, long since burned out, had melted into waxy puddles on the floor. But on a dusty table near the base of the tower, something shimmered. It was a small silver sphere, glowing softly with an internal light, like a tiny, captured heartbeat. As Theo reached out and touched it, the sphere pulsed with a sudden warmth that spread through his palm. Then, to his absolute shock, a voice spoke from it. "You're late," it said, the sound clear and ancient. Theo stumbled back, his heart pounding. "Late?" he whispered, his voice barely a breath. "Yes," the voice replied, patient and old. "Time has been waiting for you." The silver sphere rolled forward, and then, like an intricate origami flower, it began to unfold. From its center, a tiny figure emerged. It was a fairy, no taller than Theo's thumb, with delicate wings that looked like they were made of shards of glass, catching the faint candlelight. "I am Astra," she said, her voice the source of the sound. "I am the keeper of the clockmaker's star. Elias built this clock to hold the town's light, its hope. But when he vanished, so did the balance." Theo's breath fogged the chilly air. "My father, He worked for Elias. Do you know what happened to him? Astra's gentle glow seemed to dim for a moment. He went into the gears to fix them that night. The snowstorm grew wild, and the clock's mechanisms froze solid. When it stopped, the star I protect dimmed. I've been waiting all this time for someone with his blood to come and start it again. Theo's heart stuttered. He pointed a trembling finger at his own chest. Me? She nodded, her tiny form radiating certainty. Only a hand that remembers love can wind the heart of time. That night, while the whole town slept under a thick blanket of snow, Theo and Astra began their ascent through the Iron Tower. It was like climbing through a forgotten world. Each floor held its own wonders. Rooms filled with hundreds of hanging pendulums, all frozen mid-swing. Chambers stacked with broken cogs and wheels, and long glass tubes filled with what looked like frozen seconds, which ticked faintly when Theo dared to touch them. Astra, with her steady glow, acted as his guide, lighting the way up the spiraling, rickety staircases. When they finally reached the top chamber, Theo saw it, the core of the clock. It was a great crystal sphere, and trapped inside were 1,000 tiny lights, like a frozen galaxy. It was breathtaking. "This is the heart," Astra whispered, her voice filled with reverence. "It runs on hope, but it's been running on empty for years." Theo hesitated, his own feelings of doubt rushing in. "I don't have any hope," he said, the words heavy with sadness. Astra smiled softly, a look of profound wisdom on her tiny face. "Then borrow mine." She flew forward and placed her small, glowing hand on the crystal. "Think of something you love," she urged him, "someone you miss. Let that feeling fill the empty space between." Theo closed his eyes. He thought of his father's voice, deep and warm, telling stories by the crackling fire. He remembered his mother's laugh, which sounded like wind chimes. He smelled the sharp, fresh scent of pine on Christmas mornings, back when the clock still chimed and the world felt right. And as he held on to those memories, he felt it, a surge of warmth spreading from his chest, through his arm, and into his hand, resting on the crystal. With a deep groan, the gears of the clock began to move. Sparks of light leaped across the brass teeth. The entire tower started to hum, a deep, low vibration that grew stronger and stronger. The star at the very top of the tower flickered once, twice, and then it burst open like the dawn. Outside, the snow itself seemed to turn to light. Every rooftop, every window, every single icicle caught the brilliant glow. People stumbled out of their homes, shielding their eyes, confused and amazed, and then, for the first time in 5 long years, the bells began to chime. With each clear, resonant chime, a wave of forgotten joy washed over Wrenhill. Laughter returned to the streets. Children, who had only ever known a quiet Christmas, ran through the glowing snow. Someone, somewhere, began to sing a carol. Up in the tower, as Theo watched the town come back to life, he saw something in the reflection of the giant crystal. Just for a second, it was the figure of a man, his face familiar and kind. His father. He was smiling. Then, as quickly as he appeared, he was gone. Astra's wings shimmered faintly beside him. "He's proud of you," she said. "You've wound the world back into motion." Theo looked out the window. The stars in the sky were moving again, not in a random scatter, but in a careful, graceful rhythm, that matched the clock's steady beat. "Will you stay?" he asked her, a hint of hope in his voice. "No," she said gently. "Time keeps me moving, but I'll always be here. I'll be in the ticking, in every second you make count." Just that out, she flew to his open hand and placed the small silver sphere, now glowing brighter than ever, in his palm. "The clock is yours now, Clockmaker." And then, with a soft flash, she dissolved into a scatter of golden light that drifted upward out of the tower and joined the dancing stars in the night sky. From that Christmas on, Wrenhill was changed forever. The clock never stopped again. Every year, on Christmas Eve, the entire town would gather beneath it, their faces turned upward as the starlight spilled into the sky, and they would whisper a name that no one in that town ever forgot: Theo, the boy who gave time back to Christmas. And if you ever find yourself in Wrenhill, on a night when the snow falls slow and steady, listen closely. Because beneath the chime of the great clock, you might just hear a second, fainter heartbeat. That's Astra, still keeping time. And that is the end of our story. Good night, and may your seconds always shine. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe for more tales from our little corner of the world.